Welcome to Discerning News, where we bring you current stories from a bigger picture perspective. The purpose is to inspire clarity and enthusiasm for your unique journey. So, restructuring our existence. And I know before we started this podcast, we have had some restructuring going on. We are living proof that the stories we're going to share about today, as well as our own life, is all about restructuring right now. And I'll tell you what, for myself, I have a bit of pressure in my head from restructuring what we just went through.
Yeah. Took us a long road to get to here to you.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Yeah, because what we did was we added some camera angles and logged in and all the ticky-tacky that's involved with working with computers and applications.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because the restructuring we want to talk about this week and the stories we want to bring into around, things that we saw and we're focused on is really understanding, from a spiritual perspective, how to work with what's going on outside of us in these stories and how that affects our restructuring. So the first one I came in tune with was about the vaccinations, especially around the childhood vaccinations, the schedule and how many there are in Kennedy, trying to figure out how to, restructure that for kids.
RFK, yes.
RFK, yeah. See, I'm obviously tuning into past stuff. So I wanted to bring that to the forefront as far as, because I know for myself as a mom, and my kids went through the whole vaccination schedule. And, I myself went through, some older, and when I went in the military, I had quite a few put in me, and, that was a mess, right? And
like darts.
Exactly. Oh my God. Remember going down in basic? You had your arms were at like a 90 degree.
Yeah.
Both sides, and everyone's like blood running down your arms. And oh my God, it was crazy.
Badge of honor.
Absolutely. So in restructuring that format, as far as, what is it going to look like for the future and how do parents work with that energy? So whoever wants to start with this one.
Yeah, I'll kind of start off. Just kind of starting with the energy side of it is, there's that whole thing we talk about that science is born from the intellect and religion was born from the feelings and stuff like that. And so it's important that we have the science. It's important that we follow science as a guide and a basis. There can be to the point where science starts running my life as opposed to having a balance, right? And there's such a thing as science becoming a god. That it excludes everything rather than includes things. So for me, it's the difference between knowledge versus wisdom. It's that whole thing about knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit bowl, right, when you're eating it, right? So there's nothing wrong with a lot of these vaccines. It's that if we go down a certain path, what happens is you get into that energy of more must be better, more must be better. And then if that's allowed to keep going, then what happens is the concerns that people have, for instance, if you got 70 vaccines, I think is what it is, or some crazy amount before actually, the kid's 18 or something.
Yeah, it's actually like 30, but then he came up with like 92 doses because some of the vaccinations.
You have to double them up.
Double, triple.
Yeah. And so and it's good. It helps our young people and ourselves from getting sick in certain many things. But if I'm just being led by my head only, which is like my science part, I'm going to start building in fear. And that's the part for me that it's not so much the vaccine, it's not so much the thing itself for me, it's the fact that this becomes more important than the natural components of it. So when I get too much on one side of things, I open the door to fear, and then it's like I have to satisfy that. My head can't stop.
Yeah, when I got the facts about, say, that number 70 vaccines that, we go through. I remember getting vaccines in the 60s, and it was, I think at the most several. And I don't recall, 30, that's for sure. And yeah, I can see where it's gotten to this point where we find an answer and okay, that's the way to go. And it's always important for me to keep in mind, well, what do I feel is the truth? What do I feel that I need? And because actually vaccines for everybody don't, there's people that get sick and are injured by normal vaccines that work for most of us, but not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to come back to, okay, well, I've got to learn to trust myself as to when I need something and when I don't need something. And I'll use COVID as a great example, is that I just kept checking with my guidance and say, you don't need it. When I ended up getting COVID, it was in December, a few years ago. And by that time, the Omicron version had come out and it was just no big deal. I think I've already had it this fall. And again, it was a few days of a weird sore throat because it wasn't like a normal sore throat, and it was gone. And I know that the experts talk about how it's morphed into a more catchy, virus, but it's
less potent.
Yeah.
So now I'd rather just rely on my own physical body to develop its immune capabilities.
We exist in a highly intellectual world, and often the feeling part where your inner wisdom lies gets left out. There's a way to feel more in balance with all parts of yourself. This way is by accessing a spiritual bigger picture of who you are as a soul. Check out the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College to support your journey and moving through this game of life. Your intellect and feeling parts will love it.
Yeah, I guess for myself, the interesting part about this is how I need to trust my own body and trust the fact that the body I have has an immunity to it. And this first story that we're really talking about is about really like I think of the three loyalties.
Yeah.
The first loyalty is myself and my personal, and recognizing that an outer force. And I think that's a lot of why people are very stimulated by this, because of the fact that it's someone on the outside telling them what to do, especially those of us that are maybe more independent, a little more, free thinking about how to kind of go through life and not be told you need to have these 12 things and then this, that. And then it's like, well, what's that going to do to my body? Especially for those of us who are tuned in energetically. And like Tom's saying, when the vaccine came out for COVID, I checked with my guidance and I got, this is not for me. And we even checked a couple other times down the road. We're like, well, maybe we should go get it. Let's check again. Nope, that's not for me. So it being that in tune and that sensitive to working with my guidance and understanding what my body needs is really a key, I feel, especially with, having all these doses of what does that do in my body. And it also comes back to, I think of like, I know older people that have like a grandmother we had that she had like 2 sheets of prescriptions that she was taking before she passed on. And I looked at that and I'm like, what does all of that do in your body?
A cocktail.
Cocktail. And so I think of the vaccines like that too. And how long do they last? And what are they made of? And how does all these cocktails in a body work?
Yeah. The body is this amazing thing. Like it can handle a lot of stuff. It's pretty sophisticated. It's amazing. But if there's an accumulation, right? Like my body can handle a certain amount of abuse. It's designed to handle that and heal. But if that abuse keeps happening over and over and over again, or the volume of it gets higher and higher, then it outdoes what my natural system can do. So to me, this comes back down to the feeling thing and working with the bigger picture, that if I'm running by fear, if I'm running by anxiety, if I'm running by something outside of myself, I will be susceptible to everything out there. I will be susceptible to all the infinite amount of possibilities that could happen that my brain can think up. And boy, I can think some stuff up. So if I come back home to who I really am, and I know we kind of go over this thing, and this is in this podcast, or we're going to like, who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? I'm a soul with a physical body, all that stuff. If I don't come back to that and really make that practical, it's kind of like, well, I just go into synagogue or church or temple, but then when I leave, I go right back into the all the morass of society. I get right back into the same crap. So if I'm practicing that, then when something outside moves in, it's like, ooh, it's flu season. Am I going to get a flu shot? That's really helpful for some people. I know for myself personally, the last time I got a flu shot, I got terrible sick. I mean, horrible sick. So now it's like better for me to just have the flu and get it over with rather than just like the week and a half long after I got the shot. But that's my system. That's my physical body. Other things aren't like that. But if I'm running by fear, even though there's something that I know doesn't feel right, or my guidance are telling me something and then I override it because of the fear, that's where the trouble is. If I come back home to how I feel and come back home to, hey, listen, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Then from that position, I can make decisions.
I'd say this is probably one of those most challenging areas of life, is to, particularly in the light of vaccines, because of some of the diseases they've really made an impact on. So, it's a great area to practice me being me and develop my awareness. And I guess that's a summary. I was going to say that even when, if I have a feeling about something that's not, something doesn't feel quite right, as I come back to my true feelings, when I'm relaxed, I'm not in a fearful mode, and then I get more facts or a better understanding of what's being offered. One of the things we found is that as I've listened to the information that's come out, is that some of the science that we assumed was being done wasn't even really done, to the extent that most of us assumed it was done. So trust those little inner knowings and those feelings is, probably my moral to the story. But it is a challenging area, because I know my final comment on that is that, I even have concepts and the fears can move in, like, well, the doctors know, and do I have time, and that kind of thing. I guess it's an area where I just really have to relax, cleanse, and be patient with myself to find out over time, what is my feeling about this?
Well, I think that's a big part of it too, is that this is a moment for people to really trust and to gain more and more trust, as all these stories we share about, like, they're all, mirrors to how am I trusting what I'm picking up? How am I trusting of what someone else is telling me to do to my body or my house or my this or my that? It's really a moment in time to gather those insights and to trust.
I mean, and you brought up the point that we're at a time in our evolution and our cycles of planet Earth, is that we're going to start restructuring some stuff. We've got, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not some big, oh my God, everything's going to come apart, or this has never happened before. None of those things are true. None of those things are true. That is the hype that tries to keep me stuck in my emotions, right? So that someone else is in control of my destiny. And so at the end of the day, I need to respect the fact that when a new cycle moves in, there's going to be some restructuring and moving around. And yes, definitely some things are going to get wild and weird, because I'm used to that. I'm used to the old way of doing it. And now when something new comes in, oh boy, here I think the world's coming apart. Boy, if I turn on the news, oh my gosh, it's not news anymore. It's Hollywood. I'm not even really getting the facts. Oh my gosh, just give me the facts. But the point of where I was going is that restructuring thing you're talking about, I relate to it a lot, because if I don't remember that I have a purpose. I'm just renting here, right? I just do the best I know how, and then keep moving forward. And I am perfect. I came in perfect for what I've come to do, warts and all, whether my immune system is super duper or whether it's a little bit lower, I can improve things. But regardless of that, I came in perfect for what I came to do. I didn't come in perfect for what the prime minister came to do. I didn't come in perfect for what that person on the street comes to do. I came in perfect for what I came to do. And that should alleviate a lot of the fear that can come into me.
So, in speaking about restructuring and our existence, and let's talk a little about another story that I noticed this week, and it's about the White House and how they're they're remodeling a bit of the White House, and how it's an expensive remodeling, and it's they're making a new ballroom that I guess Trump is funding, and he has a bunch of people that are actually funding it also. It's like $300 million to rebuild it.
Yeah, that individuals,
yeah,
charity corporations, or people are funding. Yes,
right,
personally funding.
Yeah,
charitable works. What do we call that? There's a word for it.
Yeah,
anyway.
There's a word for it. And it just caught my eye because I know
philanthropy.
Philanthropy. There you go. Another thing that caught my eye is how there are people that are going, as they've been calling him the king and all this, riot things or protesting going on about him being a king, is that, well, the king now wants this new ballroom and the king wants this, the king wants that way. But there were not a lot of facts in regards to how they paying for that versus it was just, they thought it was just us, the taxpayers, but it's not. So this is the interesting one about restructuring our thoughts and our existence of how we relate to people in the next layer out. So we have got our first loyalty, then the second loyalty to a little bit further out. And so that's why I wanted to kind of bring up.
Well, what strikes me is that people have preferences, and I have my preferences. For example, there may be a design of the ballroom, or I might have a preference to maintain the historical accuracy of the White House. But when you get into it, you find out that they've been modifying the White House since day one, and I think when Truman or somebody came in and gutted the place at one point. So in the 50s. And right now, there's an administration, and Donald Trump is the president of the United States. So his preferences are going to carry some sway. But, there'll be somebody else elected at some point that will have different preferences, and they'll probably modify it. But, so what do I tune into my feelings about all that? And, some of what Donald Trump likes, his style of architecture or, decoration is not necessarily my thing. But
it's a little over the top.
Yeah. But that's his, that's his take on it. And we will have somebody else's take on it. So I just relaxed. I'm feeling relaxed with, the preferences. And honestly, that's not going to be there forever either. So
spiritual growth is not a race. It's a gradual progression. You do not have to spend 24 hours a day working on it in order to feel more inner peace, deeper connection to your soul purpose, and feeling more confident in your daily life. The journey is all about balancing your physical and spiritual worlds. These two worlds are supportive for embracing the foundations of the real you. By just investing minutes a day for your spiritual part as you would invest in your house or other areas of your life. To gather more direction, clarity, and a new layer of inner awareness, check out the ebook set created by the Wayshowers College. Link and discount code in show notes.
Yeah, this is a really good one that you chose. First of all, it's amazing that this is dominating the news, that it's international, like the rebuilding or redoing of the American White House and stuff like that. It's like this has become
or one wing
dominant thing over the war in Ukraine, or what they're doing in the Middle East, or what's going on with our taxes or debt. Yeah, it's like this is a very interesting, which tells you there's a slow cycle, right? The news cycle's going slow, so they want to pick on something. And it happens on both sides. It's like that. But my bone to pick on this one is a little bit what you brought up. Like the hypocrisy of this stuff is just off the charts because, they put in the bowling alley, they put in the basketball court, they put pool. I mean, the whole thing, like they keep doing this. And then, there's some people that will actually get in there and redo on the structure because when they build these things, they're really old. The structure is older. And so you have to kind of rebuild it. So that whole side of it is like, oh God, the twisting of the facts, right? It's a very manipulative thing, and it gets into that hypocrite thing. But the issue that is the main bone for me to pick is that everybody complains about the use of power, right? But no politician would dare undo it because they want that power when it's their turn.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So they complain about it, but they'll never. The president in America is meant to serve like a small version of a king or queen. That
With
is
checks
how
and
it's.
balances.
That's part of the check and balance because you have to have that executive energy to move in and do something. Otherwise, if you rely on a committee to do it, my God, you'll be forever and the whole thing is over, by the time they have a discussion on it. It's like the joke about, God sent a committee to make a horse and they came back with a camel. It's like after the horse was needed. But the truth is this is the whole game about why they say politicians are young souls. Right. I'm blanketing. It's a blanket statement. Right. But yeah, that young soul of energy for people who become these lifetime politicians, because you're learning about power. You're learning about that game and how to collect power and how to use power. And then when you get enough of that, you're like, okay, I don't need to play that game. Like I know who I am. I know my loyalties. I know where I begin and end. So anyway, bottom line is the funny thing to me about this, and I do have a few issues with not so much what they're doing, of how they're doing it. But in the end, it's kind of this big game because they don't want to take away the power, the very thing that they're complaining about, because they want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So that was, we had the first one was about our first loyalty to ourselves, right? Our vaccinations. And then further out was about our president and the organization that we deal with here in America. And then further out from that, I want to bring in the next story about King Charles, who just met this week with the Pope. And they had a big mass together, which hasn't happened in a long, long time.
Yes.
And so this felt like a really, it felt important for some reason. So I'd like to bring that up and see what you have to say about that.
I feel like this is a big deal. And, some years ago, we went to the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and I have a coffee cup and it says coexist. And it has, symbols of the Jewish religion or
all the different faith symbols.
Yeah, all the different faiths, and Muslim and Christian and all the different faiths, Hindu and Buddha and whatever. And to me, I think that's the point. And the whole, really, America, the United States of America, was founded on religious freedom. That most of the early people who arrived were seeking religious freedom, and there were a number of different Protestant groups that came. My ancestors were Mennonites, they came with the Pennsylvania Dutch, which came with the Quakers, and that was a big deal. And then later in my ancestry, one of my great grandfather converted to Catholicism, and so from there to marry a French Catholic up in Canada. And ever since I was a young person, 6 or 7, it seemed to me that the message was we all, ought to get along and let's find what's common about. And when I did a little Chat GPT search on it, it did summarize that it's unique because they're coming together to look at what they have in common versus what the difference is. And of course, the history is 500 or so years ago. Henry VIII said, "Enough of you, Pope. You're not allowing me to divorce my wives one after the other, so I want to start my own church."
Restructuring
Yeah.
the existence.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I, in summary, I feel this is a really big deal that Spirit has moved these people together, and I get chills as I share it. And it's almost being ignored. It's in the media, but it's not really a highlight because it's part of the solution, unity.
Yeah. For me, it is that an undertold story. I think it's in alignment with where the energy is at and where it's going, in that we've had a very broad energy to wrap things up. And now the natural next step is where things tighten up, things funnel in, right? That comes up to a tight crossroads, to a one road going forward, or a fewer roads going forward. And then it reopens back up again, right? So if you can imagine like an hourglass where it starts tightening up, and then it gets, you go through this part and then it starts opening back up again. So we're in that spot where it's tightening up, and going through. And will be that way for a while. And that's normal. That's natural. That's like breathing, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. And so them coming together is that tightening things up. Let's bring things together. Let's get on the same page, or see where we do agree, because it doesn't mean they agree on everything. But it means that I can come together with people. We can go after things that we agree on. And that's also what's happening, in my opinion, worldwide. Things are starting to get to that point where that individual leadership is becoming essential to move forward. Otherwise, I'm going to be tossed around with things around me. So that energy of individual leadership, that energy of where do I begin and end? And then with other people that I can work with, what are our common denominators that we can put our energy into? That is going to be more and more of what we are coming up to. And this is a sign of that. This is you have that whole separation of church and state and that side of things. However, that doesn't mean that the energy is not the energy. It's going to contract to get things going, and we need to start fresh. How are you going to start fresh when you have your energy spread out everywhere? It has to come together. It has to get focused, and then something can happen. And then you can relax it out again. So that's the bigger picture for me, is that it is an undertold story. It is a sign. It is showing things that are, okay, let's symbolically, if nothing else, let's find where we can come together. Let's bring things positive together, and let's move.
Yeah, for myself, I think the excitement about this story is the fact that, like you're saying, they're two, opposing kind of forces coming together, and out as far as a widening out of the energy, because this is not something close to us personally. I'm not Catholic, and so maybe some Catholics, it is more personal, and it's not in my immediate area. It's further out, but I can still feel the energy of it. And I think that's the key, is that whatever's going on, even those bigger pictures to what we're seeing out in the world, it echoes out and it affects everyone. So really recognizing that this is a pivotal moment in time for those two people to come together and to have that unity. And like you're saying, Tiger, and just, recognizing, for ourselves, that that's also maybe a unifying energy that I can use in my immediate day-to-day work. Like when I'm, maybe there's someone that I'm not quite unified with, but how can I come together with them to understand more and to really relate and be okay with where we're maybe on different opposing sides.
As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support. The Soul Quake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon Worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
I think that's one of the differences from when I was, I'm thinking back to when I was 7, and I went to Catholic school, but there was a lot of talk about all the different, forms of religion or Christianity coming together. And it's been, 6 decades since then. So it's not a new idea. But there's something that wants to keep us all divided rather than look at the common denominators. I was going to say, for the record, I'm more of a spiritual free thinker kind of person rather than the dogmatic religious type. But I see truth in all things, and not one thing has all the truth. So the truth that I see in there is that coming together with those values of live and let live, and love thy neighbor as yourself. I resonate with all that. That feels good to me.
Yeah, I guess my wrap up would be that the restructuring is essential, and I need to embrace it. Otherwise, I'm going to be at odds with nature and odds with the universe. And that's number one. And number two is just move based on wisdom, move based on what I know the bigger picture I'm a part of is all about. Move from that perspective. So I don't, whatever hiccups I have with fears or anxieties or ups and downs, they don't have a hold in me, that they don't have a place that is a true home. I'll experience some things as I go through my life, but moving into my week, I'm already now saying, okay, I know there's going to be some changes. I know there's going to some things that I need to restructure in myself, right? I need to think about, how am I going to accomplish this thing, right? I can draw from here. I can draw from here. That's what I'm going to take with me. That energy there. All this other stuff, it's great while it's here, but it's all passing. So to enjoy it, to be firm about it when I need to be firm about it, but always willing to let it go and not get caught up in any one thing. So to me, the restructuring and this energy this week, that's been this week, is helping me to be more relaxed and clear with what my direction's going to be.
So the interesting part about restructuring our existence, which is a theme of this episode, and all the different stories we've talked about, is how, like before we came in to hitting record, we were restructuring our existence. We're working on, trying to find some different angles, trying to, maybe have a wider audience that may want to listen to what we're saying. And so these stories really, to me, just kind of mirror that. And so I just find it so fascinating how the things that we choose and the key words that we get from Spirit about these episodes really emphasize what we're personally going through, because it took us like 45 minutes or more to try to get this, in the right space that we could restructure it to have the existence of this podcast episode get out a different way, a more, a more fluid, more solid way, but yet, more pronounced too. So it's just quite interesting, the keywords we got this week. That's my regrouping on it.
Yeah. Restructure is needed every once in a while because things get kind of we almost lose sight of certain areas, and so it gets kind of over here. Okay, we got to bring that back, or okay, I need to do some maintenance and let's expand, our state of consciousness. And what I really wanted to share too is that it's a sign for me. I take these stories as a sign for me. There's energy for me to look at restructuring myself and clarifying some areas where I might have just kind of let that go too far. I've been able to be successful with that bad habit or not so good habit, and now there's some energy there to shore that up and expand my viewpoint and look at coming together with my intellect and feeling part.
So cheers to restructuring, huh, guys?
Here's to restructuring.
And thank you for watching and listening to another episode of Spiritual Perspectives, Discerning News. We hope that wherever you're at, whatever you're rebuilding, restructuring, reformatting, you may have gotten some insights this week on how to help you move forward in a spiritual way. We'll see you guys next week. Bye. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you. Whether you are a brand new or returning fan of this podcast, we appreciate you. We appreciate you listening to the episodes that we create every single week. If you would love to support us by continually creating great content every week, please consider liking, subscribing, and supporting us monthly. You can find the buttons below to do all the above. Cheers to you and moving into our 6th year of sharing through podcasting.